And let's start with the roll call. Here.
Here. Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Here.
Okay, we're going to rearrange the order of items tonight to accommodate some of our speakers. And for the regular agenda items after the committee meeting minutes, we're going to go directly to the active transportation bike plan. And we're going to move the speed hump survey to the last item. It looks like it's going to be a long meeting. So that, depending on time, may get pushed back to another meeting. And we're going to limit public comments to 2 minutes tonight. So if we can start with the regular agenda items, and that's the approval of the committee meetings for July 29th, 2025.
Move to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then we'll move to the active transportation plan. And Robert, if you want to start it off.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. As you are aware, the town is in the process of updating its bicycle and pedestrian master plan. We've kind of retermed it to be the active transportation plan for the town. The original plan was adopted in 2014, and so it is a bit out of date, and we're in the process of updating it. We've gone through some public outreach efforts, including a web survey, interactive web map. We've collected a variety of emails from our residents to find out more about their needs, their desires, the issues throughout the town that should be considered as we develop the plan. And we have Mauricio Hernandez from Alta Planning and Design here to give a presentation of what we've gone through, the feedback we've received, where we are, along with some potential alternatives for improvements throughout the town. And we'll be following this meeting with additional outreach to the community, the town at large, and a couple localized neighborhoods to get direct feedback with regards to what's proposed within their neighborhood and throughout the town. And so this is kind of an initial update, again, of kind of the efforts that we've gone through with regards to public outreach, what we found out, and how we're looking to move forward. So with that, I'll.
Let me back up one second. I forgot to do public comments for any item not on the agenda. Does anybody here want to make a public comment for an item not on the agenda? Anyone online?
No.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mauricio.
Thank you, everybody. All right, that's better? Yeah, sweet. Thanks, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little bit, my sciatica kicked in as I was driving here, so I apologize for hunching a little. As Robert mentioned, I'm Mauricio Hernandez. I'm a senior planning associate for Alta Planning and Design. We do anything for active transportation. We've been doing this for over 30 years, almost 30 years, I should say. And we did the initial bicycle and pedestrian master plan in 2014, and we're hoping to update the plans into a new active transportation plan. Next slide. So a quick agenda items. We're going to do a project overview, what we're doing in the project. I'm going to do a little bit of an existing conditions summary. Everything's been posted online as well. I'm going to do a little bit of a phase one outreach, phase one outreach recap, as well as go through the draft recommendations, what we're proposing for the improvements throughout the town. And then we're going to leave some time for you all to ask us questions and discuss about everything here in the agenda and propose some next steps. Next slide. So really quickly, in terms of the project timeline, we started it very early in 2025. We have about 3 different phases of the project. We call the first phase the listen and learning phase, which we really are looking into what's been happening in the town, what's been updated, what has changed, and we ask questions from the community as well. Right now we're in the fall, so we're building consensus around the development of recommendations. I should stress the fact that the recommended improvements here are just recommendations. Nothing's been set in stone. We certainly want feedback from you all and the community behind me as well on everything that we're proposing. So we're coming to you first, providing you all with an update on everything that's been happening on the project. We will launch an online survey just by the middle of October to provide even more of an opportunity for everybody to chime in. We will conduct a few different neighborhood meetings that specialize on specific neighborhoods and improvements around those neighborhoods. And of course, we'll allow for public meetings and stakeholders. We are hoping that by the winter, early spring, we can have a draft master plan that you all can review. We can report to you all first. You can review and provide input so that by the summer of next year, we can have a final master plan up for consideration. Next slide. As part of the goals, we did a really concise analysis of what has been happening in the town. We did a number of reviews of surveys in particular about what the community is really looking forward. And everywhere we looked, roadway safety and improved health were really focusing on the community, particularly providing safety for all users, not just people driving, but people walking and people bicycling. There was a big stress on providing kids walking and biking to school, a little bit more safer collection of facilities for them to improve getting to and from school. Next slide. So as part of the work plan, we have basically, this is the ALTA work plan. We're looking into an existing conditions, which we completed by the end of the summer. We did public outreach and engagement. It's throughout the project duration. Right now, we're at that point where we're developing or starting to develop the infrastructure recommendations, which will be complemented and by non-infrastructure recommendations that will look into policies and programs. And of course, we'll look into how to implement the different improvements, both at the planning level and at the project level. I should say that everything in relation to the goals will permeate every single recommendation that we put together. Next slide. So really quickly, I'm going to start with existing conditions. You all can read a little bit more. It's a really long document. So we did an analysis of pedestrian facilities where people walk currently. There's places where we call them sidewalks and walkways. There are certain definitions and certain descriptions that because of accessibility considerations, we can't call some things others. So we analyze what is there already. There are almost 3.5 miles of sidewalks / walkways, and we define them on whether they're on one side, on both sides. We can go to the next slide. This particular map, after the lag, most of the streets are pretty comfortable for people to walk. They don't have sidewalks and or side paths or walkways as generally defined, but they're pretty easy to walk. Some of the streets that we found, they do have some informal paths, as you can see in the slide, with dirt. Middlefield Road is one in particular that kids do take to school, and Alameda as well. Some streets do have sidewalks, but some of those are basically crossing jurisdictional boundaries or that share jurisdictional boundaries, like Ringwood Avenue, for example, and Valparaiso. Next slide. As far as bicycle facilities, and you'll see different colors here, it's to differentiate them in the map. So you'll see that the green is the shared use paths or trails. Darker blue are bike lanes, lighter blue, buffered bike lanes, and I'm providing you also with the classifications for Caltrans. Caltrans is very specific about how they classify them. Separated bike lanes, as well as bicycle boulevards. And here are some of the examples of the existing facilities that are already here in town. Next slide. Again, the bicycle facility map is here. For the most part, we have a lot of bike routes, signed bike routes with the stencils and also with the signage to provide some connectivity within the town and to other jurisdictions in and around. There are some shorter street segments of shared use paths and some shorter segments as well as buffered bike lanes near the schools in particular. Next slide. We also developed an analysis of high injury locations. So we looked into all of the collisions that happened in the last 5 years, and I should say 5 years between 2018, 2019, I believe. 2020 to 2024, I should say. Thank you. And of course, El Camino Real, Middlefield, and Valparaiso, as well as Ringwood, were the ones that had the most collisions. We also highlighted those intersections that received the highest number of collisions. That said, and you'll see this in the existing conditions, a lot of the collisions actually happened outside of Atherton, particularly in the vicinity of Menlo Park, basically within El Camino Real as well as Alameda.
These are strictly
Bicycle and pedestrian. Correct. Yes, as defined by the police. So that may include people that are on a wheelchair or on a mobility device that are not very well defined in that side of things. As you can see here, we did an internal and external key destination analysis. So where do people go? Destinations that people could walk and or bike to. As you can see, most of the destinations that people really go to are just outside city limits, or town limits, I should say, and closer to Menlo Park. We did highlight that many of these are also schools. You'll see this also reflected in the next couple of slides as well. Next slide. The town did conduct bicycle and pedestrian counts in August of this month. I believe this was a week right before schools started, which paints a different picture once schools start. That being said, if you can see the map, there is a congregation or there's a number of people walking and people biking very much close to Menlo Atherton High School, Sacred Heart, and Menlo School, of course, as well as the Selby North-South, which tends to indicate, again, we have not done a full analysis of this, but tends to indicate that this route may be used by a lot of people going to and from the school. So that is partly what we found. This is an aggregation. This map only includes an aggregation of all bike and pedestrian counts. So, all right. So there's a lot of information here today. So I'm going to go with what we found in the phase 1 of the outreach that we've conducted from April through June. Basically, we did 4 different items or venues, let's call them this way. We did participate in the Earth Day pop-up. We had 34 participants and, of course, collected some comment cards. I will talk a little bit more about those. We conducted a demographic survey tied to the online interactive map, as well as received public and email comments after council presented a few items. Next slide. So this is a really, really high summary of what we heard. Certainly, it ties into the goals and objectives of the plan. Concerns about safety of people walking and people biking, certainly student safety to and from school. A number of you did say there are limited walking facilities in some of the neighborhoods. While our plan was being developed or is being developed, the El Camino Real Complete Streets project was kind of in the middle of it. Many of you did have They were in favor of improvements along El Camino. However, they were not specific on or clear on which specific improvements there were. We did get those comments received as part of all of the engagement that we got. Also, I do want to highlight many of the folks that we talked to or received messages from highlighted the need for additional bicycle and pedestrian friendly infrastructure. So bike lanes, sidewalks, side paths, crosswalks, and et cetera. Next slide. So I'm going to go event by event. This is the Earth Day pop-up. It was a little bit of a weird, dreary day, but we were able to engage with 34 participants, 37 comment cards we got from them, and identified 4 challenging areas, which you can see in the board. Next slide. As part of the interactive map, we conducted a demographic survey. The top 3 responses that we received, again, were very much about unsafe conditions for people walking and biking, the limited facilities in their neighborhoods, and some folks were just not interested in biking, and you'll see a little bit more. I'll dig into that. The majority of respondents were from Atherton. We did ask folks where they were located or where they lived. 79% of the respondents, which ends up being 339, were Atherton residents, and most of them lived between El Camino and Alameda, so kind of in that core portion of the city. Sorry, town. Next slide. Again, very much tied to this, the 339, we can go to the next slide. We do have a little bit more of a breakdown, as well as what neighborhoods they live in. There is a good representation with an overwhelming majority, of course, between El Camino and Real, but there's a good representation between kind of those 4 different semi-delineated neighborhoods, I should say. Next slide. The number of residents kind of showed a higher age, I should say, a little bit older, so 50 to 65 plus. So that was the majority of residents that responded to this. Next slide. Most folks that answered, and this is, again, we wanted to ask all very general questions. Most folks actually drive to get around town and get to and from their destinations. Next slide. We also asked about walking, biking, and driving. As you can see, Atherton residents are big walkers and big drivers. They do not like to bike. And so this is very much reflected in our data. We try to lump everybody else in those gray areas as other, but we're really focusing on what Atherton residents told us. Next slide. Again, summarizing, unsafe conditions for biking, the number of responses are here, the limited walking and biking facilities in the neighborhood, and folks that are not interested in biking. Additional responses were really interesting, the need for more infrastructure, as well as some folks really felt that it was too far to either walk or bike, so it's not as practical, and that's why they tend to drive. Next slide. As part of that same engagement opportunity, we developed an online interactive map that really allowed folks to tell us in an online version through a map where issue areas are and where people go to and from. So we had a few different categories. This resembled everything that we had in a printed map during the outreach activity in Earth Day. We had about 608 votes or comments that really did split into 4 different categories. Routes, either people like to bike, walk, or don't like to bike, walk. Network gaps, so very difficult locations or corridors, as well as concerns and destinations. Next slide. So these are the raw responses from folks. We had to make some changes and reclassify some of the responses that we received. These were highlighted as network gaps. Network gaps meaning difficult places to walk and or bike. These were highlighted as Atherton Avenue, Alameda de las Pulgas, El Camino Real, Ensenal, Valparaiso, and others. Next slide. As part of concerns, you can see those same corridors more or less represented here, but particular intersections were highlighted here. Very much specific, those locations that are very, very difficult to walk and or bike through El Camino Real, so crossing from the east to the west portion of the town. Those represented very difficult intersections for people to cross, and I've highlighted a few here as well. Next. As part of council meeting, there was questions about Selby Lane's improvement about Selby Lane. We received 17 comments that the town staff shared with us. Again, the top themes were opposition to the bike lanes on Selby Lane, as well as some concerns about driver behavior and comments on specific intersections, of course. Very much, we heard in many of the comments about the discussion and the questions about keeping Atherton rural or keeping that rural character for Atherton being very, very important as well. Next slide. All right, so this is where we certainly want to open up for you all for discussion. These are very much draft recommendations. We're coming from a bicycle and pedestrian safety perspective. We certainly want to serve all users of the roadway, and this is what we are coming up with. We have two different alternatives. I'm going to talk about how we develop these and why we develop these, and we can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we certainly have 4 different groups of users, and this includes both people biking and people walking. People like myself that may break a bone 1 month and then the next month they're already on their bikes and they are comfortable walking, biking, and rolling anytime and everywhere. Some folks that are okay to walk and bike in most roads. Some folks that like a little bit more separation between them and cars, as well as the ones that only ride and or walk when there is full separation. Next slide. So those last 3 groups are the ones that we certainly want to focus on. That's like the 60 to 80% of the generation. We certainly want to provide opportunities for people to walk and or bike if they want to. If you want to drive, that's great. But if you want to bike and or walk, that's also what we want to provide. So just opportunities to do so in an early manner. So I'm going to talk first about pedestrian facilities for people walking and rolling. And you'll hear me say rolling. We talk about people rolling, so folks that need a mobility device like a wheelchair and or a scooter. So those are brand new to our systems now. We certainly use guidance not only from Caltrans, but from the federal government, from the Federal Highway Administration that put a lot of really good guidance on how to develop facilities and proven countermeasures that are very useful to improve safety and connectivity. Next slide. What we really focus were on both the corridors, so we call those walkways, and the intersections. The way that we broke those down, the intersections, are 3 different groups, and I'll talk a little bit about them in the next couple of slides. So we lumped them into crossing accessibility improvements, roadway improvements, and traffic control improvements. And these will make a little bit more sense in the next couple of slides with a lot more color. Next slide. So as far as the linear recommendations, we're really looking for improving walkways, making them a little bit more accessible. So either you need a sidewalk on one side or 2 sides of the roadway. 2 sides of the roadway are particularly in those locations where there's a lot more motor traffic. So El Camino would be a great opportunity for that. Sidewalks in places where it is good to improve a sidewalk or change the sidewalk. We do know that there are drainage requirements and also considerations that we have to keep in mind. And of course, once you include a sidewalk, you change a little bit of the character. We certainly want to continue the rural character of the town. We also are calling for additional shared use spaces or shared use paths. And again, the colors here will be reflected in the maps that are upcoming. Next slide. All right, so we've also highlighted here in this map, this is the recommended walking network. So for the most part, we're calling for places with walkways either on one side or two sides. And we've also highlighted places where there's going to be a lot of collaboration with other jurisdictions, like El Camino Real, that is really under Caltrans's purview in some spots. So we certainly want to tackle those missing facilities along places where we're expecting and already see high numbers of people walking, particularly close to or next to each of the schools, as well as missing facilities along the high injury corridors that we highlighted as part of the existing conditions. So that would include Valparaiso, El Camino, and of course, Middlefield. Next slide. I talked about these groups, and so this is 2 groups of facilities, and you'll see them reflected in the next couple of maps. We wanted to highlight a few different crossing and accessibility improvements, like advanced yield markings that are those little triangle. My wife calls them shark teeth, as well as the high visibility crosswalks that are very important to highlight where you would expect more people crossing the street, particularly at school locations. Pedestrian refuge island, again, very much thinking about where they're appropriate. This is probably more appropriate in El Camino Real, where there's a little bit more right of way and you need a little bit more time to cross the street. Accessible ramps, just so that people with disability may know, or visual impairment may know where to land and how to go through and maneuver through the intersection. The last group of improvements, traffic control improvements, you'll see that these include roundabouts, rectangular rapid flashing beacons or RRFBs, as well as new signal improvements and pedestrian hybrid beacons. Next slide. These are very much congregated. You'll see that there are a lot of El Camino Real. Part of it is coming from the El Camino Real Complete Streets study that was just completed, as well as some countermeasures to improve conditions at high injury locations along El Camino. The town is also working in some of those improvements, so we wanted to include them in here, particularly in Alameda de las Pulgas, as well as a few locations on Middlefield where, again, very much looking to implement countermeasures at high injury locations. These are very much dictated by the manuals for traffic improvements that we have, and so we have little wiggle room in terms of what we can implement, but we certainly want to maintain the character of the town. That was pedestrian facilities. This is going to be bicycle facilities, which again, very much taking guidance for Caltrans as well as FHWA and newer bike guidelines as NACTO. Next slide. And we're really focused on increased user safety through separation. You'll see that safety is very much what we are trying to do, and closing the gaps in the existing network, as well as providing access to those key destinations. Because Atherton is not an island, we also wanted to provide both cross-town connections as well as regional connectivity. Next slide. This slide provides you with a few examples of what each of the facilities that we're recommending are. So some shared use paths, some separated bikeways, and again, very much context sensitive, as well as the buffered bike lanes that are already included. We do want to provide more separation. So see these 3 facilities, these 3 facilities are the most separated facilities that we are recommending. Next slide. These next couple of facilities, some of them have already been implemented, particularly bike lanes and bike routes. Bicycle boulevards have not been really implemented in town, but have been very well implemented in other places, and that does include both the arrow markings on the roadway as well as some traffic calming features like chicanes and or traffic diverters, as well as traffic circles. A few examples here from Berkeley, as well as, I believe this is Menlo Park, Palo Alto. Thank you. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we do have two alternatives. And again, everything's on the table. These are alternatives to provide connectivity to and from different places. We're just looking at providing more separation between users. We did highlight, again, locations or, I guess, corridors that do require cross-agency coordination, so El Camino Real. Alternative one does improve connections to town center. It does include for additional bike routes, which are the yellow ones, as well as additional bicycle boulevards with traffic calming features. We have been in conversations with the town on the different facilities and what neighbors like or dislike, and so we wanted to provide a few different alternatives. Let's go to the next slide. Alternative 2 provides a little bit more separation. So you'll see on this one that El Camino has a class 4 separated bikeway, as well as provides a little bit more separation or a little bit more space for people bicycling on the road. So you'll see bike lanes as well as buffered bike lanes in a few different places. We've also included or upgraded some of the existing shared markings to bicycle boulevards to improve that traffic calming mechanisms throughout the city. Sorry, town. Next slide. All right, well, made it through in 15 minutes, great. Yeah, we wanted to open it up in Q&A. We have a slide just to help us provide that. So we can certainly talk about the phase 1 outreach if you have more questions, or the existing conditions or recommended improvements. But yeah, I want to thank you for your time and consideration.
Anybody on the committee have questions?
I would like to know how our outreach, was it extraordinarily successful, ordinarily successful, almost successful? I mean, the response rate seems low.
We started, we had 3 months of outreach in the first phase. We certainly want to focus a little bit more and expand it for the second phase, since this is the recommendations where we're really focusing on, this is what we'd love to implement. We certainly want to expand that and improve the numbers. So we're doing a few different neighborhood meetings. So basically, focusing on a particular neighborhood at a time. And we also want to do a few different town-wide meetings, as well as a survey on the facilities as well. So we certainly want to continue increasing the numbers and reach as many people as we can. Robert?
I'm going to add in. I'm going to say that we try to reach out in a variety of different ways to get as many folks to participate as we could. We found that some people were very happy to do online surveys and work with the interactive map, while others found the interactive map really challenging. And so we are going to be shifting a little bit as we go with this next phase to make it a little easier to provide us with feedback. And so Mauricio highlighted the actually going out, and so we do need to send mailers out, and we'll be talking about how we're going to break up the town potentially and get some feedback from you as to whether or not that makes sense. But we will be hitting all of our outreach channels with regards to trying to collect feedback, and that includes through our e-newsletters, our website, and hitting up particular neighborhoods that have folks that blast out to folks. And depending on how things go, we may or may not do a townwide mailer either on its own. I don't think we'll be able to hit the Athertonian, but we do want to get the word out. And so everything that we can, once those meeting dates are set up and have that online survey, we appreciate any help we can get to get the message out.
Just one follow-up. Age distribution of your respondents looked kind of skewed. Do you have any idea how that corresponds to the town's overall age distribution?
I would rely on you on this one. I'm not very particular on this distribution.
I'm going to say that we do have, though the town does have an older general demographic, when it comes to our outreach efforts, I'm not going to say that we went direct to students. It's more going to be the family. And so that's why you had the 45, was it 39 plus?
50 plus.
Well, there was like 100 or so that were in that second tier.
Yeah.
And then there was a large group of 65 plus. And part of that is who's interested in responding. And so I'm not going to say that. And so as you get this feedback, keep in mind,
There's some self-selection involved.
yes.
Yeah, and that happens with
And
every
so,
survey. Yeah, that's true.
the feedback that we get, we really appreciate. I think we have a large number of folks in the audience here tonight that will want to share some feedback as well, which is really appreciated. And so any efforts that we can in terms of getting the message out, I think that on this next round, we'll probably send notifications to the different schools or PTAs or the Safe Routes coordinators to kind of get them to provide feedback as well.
I think there's also been other avenues. Alta is participating on a different project with San Mateo County Office of Education. We've been doing a few different school safety audits, so basically looking around the school in terms of improvements. And we've gotten some really interesting feedback that really did help us develop or inform the recommendations, specifically from the students, in particular around those schools. So that's been really important for us to go to.
Thank you.
Do we have some, this is a lot of information. We have some resource that I'd like to look over more of this, and if residents wanted to look over it also. Is there anything online that has all this information?
So we have a project website. It's not fully updated. You have attached to today's staff report the public outreach results as one attachment and the existing conditions findings as a second attachment. These are available online. We will be putting them on the project webpage for folks to review at their leisure.
Our hope is also to populate the survey in the next few weeks and include the recommended improvements in there. So the two options, the two alternatives, I should say, so that people can really weigh in, really understand what's in each of the corridors as well.
And
as
that
weigh
will
in.
be on that same website?
Correct. We're trying to centralize everything as well. So yes, we know that it's a lot of information. So I do appreciate that comment for sure.
Does anyone else have questions?
I've got two questions. So one is, you described our town as a driving town and a walking town, but not a bicycle town. I'm paraphrasing, I think, what you said.
I would say that's what we received in terms of the comments, that people like walking a lot and people like driving a lot, but people don't really like bicycling too much, at least from the responses that we received in relation to the survey.
So if we assume that to be an accurate characterization, would it make sense to segregate our thinking on bicycles versus pedestrian activity as opposed to having the two of them represented together?
I think as David mentioned, and I'll let you chime in as well, as David mentioned, I think it's also important that we didn't only receive input from all aspects of the community or all portions of the community. So it may have swayed the comments. The representation here, it's just the conclusions that we had relation to the data that we received.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Steve,
go ahead.
yeah, sorry. We do have two separate exhibits, one related to pedestrian facilities and another related to alternatives related to bicycle. So we are looking at them both. And so it's not, you say, are we looking at pedestrian? Yes, it's just, you don't just have just a pedestrian plan separate from a bicycle plan. This is a combined plan trying to outline the needs and desires of our community at large with regards to both types of facilities. If that answers your question. So we are getting feedback with regards to pedestrian needs. And so there was a map that highlighted some potential recommendations with regards to pedestrian improvements, right? And so that includes, I'll give you a few examples, like Middlefield Road, for example. There is a high demand for pedestrian mobility on that route. There's an informal pathway for a good stretch of Middlefield, but it's not an accessible walkway. And so there's a recommendation to put a facility on one side of the road. On Alameda de las Pulgas, we have decent sized shoulders outside of the bikeway that can be used for pedestrian facilities. Another recommendation is potentially, these are all potential, and it's going to get feedback from you as well as the community at large as to where else do we want them, right? And so there's a gap between the town center and Watkins, which a lot of people have indicated is a need so that you can get over to and from the park. Others along Atherton Avenue or Selby Lane or other areas where there's heavier pedestrian traffic. And so these are outlined as pedestrian, and then next to that or adjacent to that is a discussion of bicycle facilities and what those might look like.
If the sample is accurate, it sounds as though the citizen emphasis is on pedestrian driving primarily. Is that accurate?
I would think that that's mostly who responded, because we're not getting people under 18 responding and seeing a lot more children using their bikes instead of their parents driving them.
Or the parents of 10-year-olds, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we certainly saw a lot more kids biking to school when we did the school safety audits. Quite a big proportion of students.
To be clear, I'm
Yeah.
not challenging
No,
the
no, no,
results.
I totally understand.
I'm
It's
not
a great
I'm
question,
just-
actually.
And so the reality is this is a conversation.
Yeah,
Right.
understood.
And so we're not predisposing anything, but we are seeing that folks have responded that one of the reasons why they don't is because there aren't enough facilities or they're not safe enough. And so if you are inclined to, you say, well, I don't because the facility's not there, or I don't feel comfortable enough to use it.
Right. Now, in the
And-
case of, sorry, and I'll get
Yeah.
off the point.
Yeah.
But if I read that slide correctly, and we did go through it so
Mhm.
quickly, but it sounds frankly like there's relatively low interest in biking among the citizenship. I'm
Well,
not anti-biking,
here's
to
the
be very
chart.
clear.
And so there are, I think we had, 339 Atherton residents. So a good number of them, 137 say they never bike. Okay. An equivalent number say I walk every day. Okay. 83 say rarely, but there are, what is that, a little over 100, 110 maybe, that say that they bike a few times a month.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is from what we got from that the responses. And I think you saw what the age demographic was. And for a lot of folks, as you get older, you are unfortunately a little less active.
So are we assuming that we have a statistically reliable sample underpinning these results, or do we not know?
I'm going to say we don't know. This is just the responses that we have.
That's fair. Last question, I'm sorry. August 12th was the date that one of those things was measured? And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, is there a reason for that
I
particular
will tell
date?
you what it is. So we were in the process of conducting an engineering and traffic survey to validate speed limits. And as that unfolded, there was an opportunity to have that company stick out devices to collect bicycle and pedestrian activity on those streets, generally at that same time. And so as they were setting things up, they put up a camera, they recorded whatever was on the roadway.
Yeah.
It wasn't a date selected. It's not an optimal date
It
because
was a
it doesn't
convenient
hit.
date.
It was just
That's understood.
what
Yeah.
fit into doing that work.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is August 12th isn't when school's typically in session, so
No,
maybe,
and
maybe student activity
admittedly,
is
so the numbers that we
underrepresented.
have are likely low in relation to school.
Got it. Thank you.
And so I don't know, Chair, when you want to open it up for feedback from the public?
Anybody else have questions? Okay, then we'll open it up to the public. And just please step up and state your name and oh, it has to be recorded.
Okay, I live on Selby Lane.
And your name,
I've lived there
please.
on a cul-de-sac, actually. My name,
Yes, please.
Mary Lou Schiavo. And I lived there I live on a cul-de-sac though, so I'm not as much affected by all of this. But I do walk just about every day. And I'm suggesting that you guys get out and walk a few times a week because I don't see any bicyclers at all, and I walk all times. So say from 8:30 in the morning until 11 o'clock. I mean, it's intermittently. But I certainly don't see Selby Lane kids bicycling at all. What I do see are pedestrians that have lots of room to walk on the side because we do have a lot of, what did you call them, the side paths or something? And they're not walking on those, they're walking in the middle of the street. And a lot of them are walking with baby carriages and their telephones in front of their faces. I stop and I tell them. I'm not sure what we're trying to improve here when we're talking about Selby Lane. I think that we've already used a lot of money on all of this research, and most of the residents I know, but they're not all here, are against bicycle or walkways on Selby. They don't want to change. And I know one couple here who get 1 million people parking during school hours, and they don't mind that. They just seem to say, okay, that's part of school. So I think they're great for doing that. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is what kind of improvements do you think you're going to get out of this? What kind of safety? People will still not pay attention if that's why you're doing it. And we don't have bicyclers. Thank you very much.
Which part of Selby Lane? Because there's the two parts. So is this the
Okay,
part
I live on the
that's-
part that comes from El Camino.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and I'm not very far from the school. And I've lived there 40, so I've seen a lot of changes. 43, almost 44 years. At one time, there were a lot of kids bicycling, but there aren't anymore. It could be the amount of cars that come by, or parents are more protective now than they used to be, and they drive them. Any other questions for me? No?
Thank you.
My name is Connie Lurie,
and we bought our property on Selby Lane across the street from the school in '88. Back when the 2014 survey was conducted, the school, which is across the street, it's a Redwood City school, by the way. It's not connected to Menlo Park or Atherton. It's a Redwood City school. It could have been fought when they changed it to a destination school a couple years ago, but the town of Atherton did not do that. So now it is a school where people are coming from Redwood City to bring their children, and they bring them all in cars. So if you want to see the impact, come sometime about 10 to 8 in the morning. It is a tremendous amount of traffic bringing the children to school. It's also been changed. It used to be a school for older elementary kids. Now the kids only go up, I think, to the 5th grade. So they're little ones. We need parking all along there for those families in order to park. The plan that we have seen on Selby Lane takes away all of the parking, which just doesn't make any sense at all. And the city had a meeting about 1.5 years ago, I think, over at Selby Lane School, and people from the community were there. We had a big group. We were about 60 people, if I remember it correctly, in the library. There was not one family from the area that was in favor of changing anything on Selby Lane. Now, I don't know what's happened to that report, but you should have a copy of that. People in that area do not want to be lumped in with El Camino and Middlefield Road and any other road that you think needs something done to it. We would like just to be left alone. I'm sorry. Bye.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Ross Koningstein. I live at 130 Selby Lane. I live at 130 Selby Lane. And you've heard some of the feedback from the Selby Lane exercise, which I would hope gets used, I guess, more constructively in the next round. Like, I like that you've gathered some data on where people think the troublesome intersections are. I could certainly relate to a number of those. But the recommendations that are proposed don't come with the kind of trade-offs and lessons that I think we've seen so far. So for example, I think for townspeople, we don't understand how much this is going to cost, like for doing these things. We don't understand the inconveniences. And I think this was one of the, like, I think Selby Lane didn't go well because once people actually saw what was being proposed, they said, that's not what we want, right? And I think if this process wants to be more successful in Atherton, these choices or these proposals that are being made should state these are the kind of consequences that you have on your streets. You might have loss of parking, you might have loss of this or whatever, but it should be clear. And in some cases, that's going to be fine, and in other cases, it won't. But people, if we're going to turn what I think are recommendations that come from, you know, this group, what is it? Pardon me, the group that's making the traffic recommendations here. If we turn that into something that the townspeople want, we have to pair this with what are the consequences people can expect. And I contrast this with the discussion we had about the speed bumps on Selby, where, yeah, there was some back and forth with people, where do we think we want to place them? But that resolved surprisingly quickly. And I haven't really heard blowback from the neighbors. I would illustrate that process was more successful than the one about the bike lanes. So I'm hoping we could do more of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alan Martin. My wife and I have lived in Atherton almost 30 years. This is my first council meeting. We represent two constituencies here. We live at 62 Selby Lane. We represent two constituencies. One, we have to drive out of our driveway every morning to get onto Selby Lane. So we're concerned of a dedicated separate biking lane creating hazards by bikers who will no longer have to pay attention to what they're doing and who will speed down that street at 35 miles an hour. And two, we, like Connie, walk 5,000 or 10,000 steps a day. Atherton's a wonderful place to walk. We walk down Selby, Patricia, and we would be concerned about taking out parking, putting in swales to offset the water impacts of adding more pavement. So really, I'm happy to have bicyclers use the streets, but I don't want them to endanger. So I don't want to spend taxpayer money to subsidize a group that will endanger people who live there, people who walk there every day. I am encouraged by what I've heard here today because that original proposal we saw taking out all of the on-street parking, and we're not all that social, but we have 2 or 3 events every year where we need people who visit us to park on the street and not have to drive or walk 3 blocks to get to our house. I would second Connie's comments as well. Selby Lane School used to have a lot of bicyclers going to school. It's now all driving. I hardly ever see people driving down Selby Lane in the morning. It's a driving drop-off, and putting in restrictions on parking will create lots of congestion at that particular event. So, thank you.
Thank you. We've got one more.
My name is Patty Sposaferro, and I live at 130 Selby Lane. I just want to point out that not only does it affect the people living on Selby Lane, and if the bike paths are going to be there, that means the people who are visiting me or anyone on our street are going to be forced to park on the cul-de-sacs of all the way up. And so it's not just the Selby Lane that's going to be impacted, but the whole infrastructure of Selby Lane. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Brent Edwards. I live at 164 Selby Lane, which is 2 houses away from the school. Parking is precious around that school, especially when the kids are going in and out of the school early morning and in the afternoon. My property allows for 6 cars alone to park there. And I would hate to see that go because it provides safety for, the way I feel, it provides safety for both the kids and the parents. I've been there 26 years now. I do not see a lot of bicyclists at all. It's rare. That's about all I can say. I can just agree with just about everybody that's been up here. I do walk as well, and I think walking is just fine the way it is. So that's my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
After public comment here, we have one comment online.
Let's have the online comment.
So we have Kevin Brown. Did you want to speak, Kevin, or do you just want us to read your comment?
No, I'd be happy to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, first off, thank you to the council and staff for taking the input from the community. So I've lived here 27 years with my family. We live right across from Selby Lane School. We agree 100% with the comments that have been made so far. There's never been an issue that has energized our community and everyone that I know up and down the street as much as this topic. The points made about it's a K-5 school. I went to Selby Lane, back in the day, and and it's very different now. No one bikes. It's K-5. On top of that, we live right across from the school. There's a tremendous surge every day of parking, and we're very sympathetic to it. We're happy to have the parents park there and safely walk their kids there. We think it's great, but creating a whole new sort of expensive and kind of disruptive development there will interfere with that. and it will not be a safe biking zone. I'm a biker too. It will not be a safe biking zone even if we put a bike lane in there because of all of that that's happening. So, I have to record myself as a little bit frustrated. We've had a number of input sessions where the community was extremely pointed on this and very unanimous for our whole neighborhood community on the negative impacts and just we think some bad assumptions around what would actually happen. So I want to thank everyone for participating, and we just like to say that we think that this is one that really needs to be considered, and all of the community inputs that have been given I think are very clear.
Thank you. So, we don't need to do anything. This is just for
No,
information.
I'm just going to highlight a couple of items and try and get a little bit of feedback in terms of how we do our public outreach. And so I do want to kind of remind that nothing has been selected for any particular street. There are a couple of different alternatives for most of the streets. And so, for example, for Selby, which you heard a lot of comments on, there was in the original plan, there was the bike lane, which was widening the road. In the alternatives that we have, there's that widening, which you heard some opposition to, but there's a second alternative, which is just basically enhancing the on-road bikeway experience. So not widening the road, but kind of highlighting it more as a bike boulevard, along with some other ancillary improvements. And as we go to the neighborhood meeting and talk to the townwide meeting, the suggestion that Ross mentioned was something that we were planning to do, is kind of talk about what the implications would be for any of these alternatives as they come through. And so we were planning, as Mauricio mentioned, a few different outreach events. One is more of a pop-up event and taking advantage of the large congregation of folks that will be here at the end of October. And so kind of taking up the council chambers and providing an opportunity for folks to provide us feedback on anything bike and ped related, including the recommendations that or the alternatives and suggestions that we have for consideration. And so that would be a pop-up event. I think it's on the 30th? The 30th of October, when the town has its Halloween event. That's generally an event that attracts a lot of folks, and so it's an opportunity to take advantage of folks being here. Having a townwide meeting, inviting folks to participate, and that would likely be here as well. And then we're looking at potentially 2 to 3 neighborhood meetings. And initial thoughts were potentially inviting Lindenwood and areas east of El Camino as one meeting. Then for the folks that are west of El Camino, kind of splitting that up and doing kind of like Selby Stockbridge on one side in one meeting, and then the remainder at a site at another meeting. And so focusing, I think the main areas there are going to be Atherton Avenue and the areas around the schools. And so if that makes sense as opportunity or kind of how to break things up, then we're happy to hear that. If you have other suggestions as to how we would break up the town or other outreach events that we should consider, we're here to listen.
I did have another question about Selby Lane. The comments are purely for the Selby Lane that goes from El Camino to the school, not the Selby Lane that goes from Atherton Ave to Stockbridge /
The
Selby.
folks that you heard today are predominantly from El Camino to Selby.
Okay.
Before it makes a 90-degree turn.
Yeah, because I know there's lots of bicycles.
Can I,
that part.
can I have the floor?
Connie, I just want to talk to you briefly about the.
Okay, I have a comment. Sorry, guys. I'm taking the microphone now. I hear you guys that you've had an outreach meeting, and it's great, you guys are paying attention, but not all of your neighbors have. So the way government outreach works is it's super redundant. So that eventually those stragglers get a chance to be caught up with where you guys already are. So I hear you that you guys are frustrated because you've had so many meetings, but not everyone has heard about those meetings. Not everybody has attended those meetings. And so when we have them repeatedly, it gives other people a chance to learn about it for the first time and get their turn to do feedback.
If the vice mayor has the floor, please.
Yeah, so I'm saying, like, this is a good thing. I know you guys are frustrated because you've had your turn, like, you guys have been very active, and that's really good, but not every neighborhood has had that chance, and so that's why we are adding more outreach for this whole plan altogether, so that you guys get to opine not just on the Selby Lane bike lane, but also, what are we doing on Atherton Avenue, Alameda de los Pulgas, El Camino? There are other parts of the town that you guys travel through that we will be talking about in these meetings outside of the bike lane on your street. Does that make sense? Okay,
Well, the public comment's closed right now.
so I'm just,
We need, the public comment is closed.
Just a question, is that plan that's shown on the slides available to us?
We just mentioned that it's going to be, it's not completely on the website, but it is coming to the website, the Atherton website.
Do we have a date on that?
We don't have a date on that.
Through the chair.
Yes.
All of the information presented at tonight's meeting is available online. The reports are online currently attached to the agenda. And so the information is there, it's just not on the project website, which it will be. And I have a few of the neighborhood email addresses. I'll be sending some directed emails to the community so that they will have access to the information.
Very good. Okay, I guess we're on to the next agenda item then.
I didn't hear an answer to my question with regards to the outreach, but if you think everything's good, then I'll take that.
Okay.
That there should be meetings separate sections of town was one of the questions.
Yeah.
Like an answer.
I feel like you mentioned, though, there was some form of outreach relative to
Doesn't have.
Selby Lane, back Whitman. And I think there might be other folks as active community. There may be others, I'm just not aware of them, but I think if your plan was to work through those folks, reach out to their community.
Yeah, so there's that kind of directed outreach to get them to engage in providing feedback. But what the council had asked for is us going directly to the community. So in addition to blasting information out, but actually inviting them as a neighborhood to talk about what's proposed theoretically in their neighborhood, as well as throughout the town.
And I think offering a resource to help facilitate those conversations within those groups in those neighborhoods might be helpful. And then just a point, because it came up, I think that there are two sides of this. I think the town puts in a lot of effort for outreach, but I think that the outreach and the effort the town puts in can sometimes be very ineffective. So I don't know how to bridge that gap. But I do think that just in listening to the conversations tonight, that if the town said, look, here's the date at which we're going to make a decision, right? Here's what we've heard so far, and here are the things what we want feedback on, so that we in the town can say, okay, I've got to give an answer by a certain time, and here are the things that impact me, and here are the things that impact the greater town, so that I now know what I want to emphasize in these meetings and these conversations. But what I don't feel has happened very well is that the voices that have come forward and explained, here tonight and in the untold meetings past, feel as though they've been heard, right? So maybe saying, look, here's when we're going to make a decision, and here's what the decision is going to entail. So we're collecting info until that time. So I think from a town perspective, while lots of quantity in terms of outreach, we need to find the solution for the quality.
Okay.
Is there a plan to reach out to Selby Lane school parents to see what they were thinking?
Yeah, so that's, I said we would be reaching out to the different safe routes, folks at the different schools.
We have had the meeting at Selby Lane School, too, I think, and it was attended almost by quite a few Selby Lane families. The one I went to was not a lot of Atherton residents, plenty of Selby Lane.
Okay.
Great. Okay, let's move to the next agenda item, school walk audit reports.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Attached to your agenda was a copy of the walk audit report for Menlo Atherton High School. That was conducted at the end of, near the end of last school year in April, and included participants from the town, the County Office of Education, San Mateo County, and Menlo Park, which all border the school. And it included efforts in terms of observing how people come and travel to the school, the routes that they take, and the issues that were observed in the area. And the effort was contracted through the San Mateo County Office of Education. And in the evaluation, they followed on with looking at accident history and a few other issues, and they came up with a variety of potential recommendations for all those involved to consider as work is done in and around the neighborhood and funding opportunities become available. Given our, the areas that folks travel from and come to the school, there's a lot of folks that come up Ringwood. Ringwood is not predominantly not a town facility. It is predominantly County of San Mateo. Folks coming from the south along Middlefield are coming through Menlo Park. We do have folks that were observed coming in, for example, from from Oak Grove and Ravenswood, from the east side. Again, that's kind of, we have Middlefield Road and a little bit of each of those, but then further up it's Menlo Park, and then we have Oak Grove on our side and Middlefield Road on our side, going towards the south. So there are a variety of recommendations listed in the report, including potential intersection improvements, pathway work, bicycle facilities, and other things. A good number of those were outside of town, but there were several recommendations for us to consider as we move forward, particularly around the Oak Grove intersection and linkages to transit. And so at that corner of the school, on the southbound direction, the bus stop is past DeBell, and there's no real clear walking path. There's not really much room for one, but it was observed that folks are walking there and there's not really a facility.
That's the northbound?
I'm sorry, that's south, that's northbound. You are correct. I apologize. So northbound, the stop is past DeBell. On the southbound side, it's right across the street from the school. A large number of kids congregate there, particularly in the afternoon, to catch the bus. There's no sidewalk there, but one of the concerns that we have is that if we actually segregate and provide a fixed area for the pedestrians, it would likely push the bus into the travelway and bike lane. So it's understood that there's issues for us to look at and to analyze and see if there are potential things that we can do. There are a variety of recommendations there. The report is there for you to look at. If you have any questions, we're available to answer.
I don't think anybody's had a chance.
Okay. Then I did want to highlight that recently, I think last month, we conducted a walk audit of Encinal Elementary. And so that analysis is being conducted by the consultant that did that, again on behalf of the Office of Education. Participants included the town, the County Office of Education, City of Menlo Park, a variety of parents. And we were lucky enough to get a presentation from fifth graders that kind of did their own walk audit. And so they presented the issues and concerns that they had. They actually will be coming to the council on the 15th to make that same presentation.
So can we, I mean, nobody's had a chance to look at this. And we can just email you with our comments.
You can email with your comments if you want to set a future agenda at some other time to further talk about it. We're just keeping you apprised. The walk audit report is complete. It's available for everybody. And so it's not that feedback is going to change the report, but it certainly will inform us, particularly as we develop the Bike and Ped Master Plan. There are potential things that we should look at to include in the plan.
And as of now, there is no, I'd say about a year ago, there was different plans being set forth for Ringwood Avenue, and that seems to have all disappeared. I actually talked to the chairman of the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee for San Mateo County, John Langman, and he said they're doing another study. So it's all up in the air again.
Yeah, I don't think they were able to come to any sort of consensus.
It'll never.
The audit wasn't super clear on what specifically should happen on, say, Ringwood and Grove, or I got really confused when the directions that might have been cardinal directions when we think of the peninsulas up and down instead of it's really like left and right. So I couldn't figure out which part of Oak Grove they were talking about when they're talking about Oak Grove and which part of Ringwood.
So I'm happy to sit down independently with you. There's also a map that has kind of a key with those same recommendations that outline more of the location. And so again, I'm happy to sit down on the side and go through that with you.
So you said that this graders did a walk on it?
For Encinal.
That should be really good.
It was cute. It was really cute.
Yeah, might be accurate.
Can I ask a question? If you don't mind.
Oh, well, anybody else? Anybody have questions?
So I did read the report, and some of the recommendations at the end of the document were things like crosswalks. Is that something that will, how does a crosswalk matriculate? How does a crosswalk become a crosswalk is my question. If that's the recommendation, that seems like a pretty low cost, fast thing that could be added, like on the high visibility crosswalk across the T-Lot driveway. And that's a shared jurisdiction between the high school and the town of Atherton on page 9 of the report.
So if I'm reading that correctly, that may be that's either a crosswalk on school property where the school would be able to do that, or B, if it's on Ringwood, it would be the county.
Okay.
But if it's across their driveway, the likelihood it's the responsibility of the school.
Okay. So I just, like, we did this audit and now it comes in front of this committee. How do any of these ideas matriculate up if they're identified as being good measures for the safety of the school.
Okay, so I am going to distinguish between what is in town control versus school control versus other jurisdictional control.
Yeah.
We have control over our right-of-way. And we are currently in the process of developing a bicycle and pedestrian master plan. So as we develop the plan, we can take these recommendations and feed them in. The school has a copy of this report. They participated in the walk audit, and they have the ability to improve their campus.
Okay. So then on Ringwood Avenue, they recommend a crosswalk across both school driveways and what, Toyon Road, 3B, which is the trifecta of the high school, the town, and the county. So how does that, like, who would initiate a crosswalk? Like, I'm just like, this is paint that we're talking about. So this isn't like a big, it's not going to require like a lot of money, a CEQA, like how do we get a crosswalk? If there's a crosswalk needed, 3 crosswalks here, and we have 3 players in the mix, how does this happen? Who starts it? Because I mean, it seems like this feels like a very easy no-brainer versus some of the bigger things of a giant bike, like very big infrastructure improvements. So
this is great conversation, but it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
It's a big conversation, and it, as you said, sometimes involves a lot of players. And we certainly can do certain things within our right-of-way, but we cannot force another jurisdiction to do something.
But some of
Well,
it
we
is
can talk
ours.
to them and try and coordinate, which we do on a variety of other things.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item. We're going to have an e-bike presentation.
Yes, we are. So we have Officer Andrew Ha, our school resource officer, put together a presentation that we gave to our annual all schools meeting last month. And then just to tee it up a little bit, I know a lot of you might be familiar with e-bikes. We've really seen an explosion in the industry in the last couple of years as they become available and the technology. And there's a lot of different rules and regulations. And I was talking with Jerry earlier, committee chair, you know, state law, government moves slow, and so they're having trouble keeping up. I believe there's some discussion in the Capitol now about improved laws. What we wanted to do, because we're getting a lot of questions, and as you might, and speaking to the community, is just educate you about the issue. Our traffic enforcement division did a really good job because it's even very confusing for us about what is enforceable and what is not. So we've developed some very good guidelines and some graphics to help our officers. In the last, I would say 6 to 8 months, we've been doing a lot of community outreach and education through news flashes and articles, educating what we hope is parents, which are the key to this problem. Because if you've seen, like I have around town and in Menlo Park, at one time I saw 3 kids on one e-bike leaving McDonald's. The driver was texting and eating French fries, and the 2 girls on the back with no helmets were doing kind of the same. So, you know, it's kind of a recipe for a disaster a little bit. And what we do find, as with parents are the key, and we will be working through the schools with outreach and education events for the parents so they know what are they buying their kids. First off, is it legal for them to be having it? Are they tweaking it, which is not allowed, making it go faster than it's allowed to? And are they enforcing that they have a helmet and one person? So it is an issue that we're aware of. We're not the only agency. It's happening all around us and across the state. So we just wanted to give you a brief presentation that I know that Officer Andrew has done a good job on, and educate you and take your questions.
Technology. So I'm going to give you a brief presentation on e-bikes, as well as scooters and everything else associated with electronics. So this is not a problem we see in our department only. We're seeing the same issue in Menlo Park, East Palo Alto. Along the same lines, I was at my parents' place in Redwood Shores, saw 2 kids riding their e-bikes down the road, didn't stop at a stop sign. Tesla barely made the stop. These kids are doing about 50 miles an hour. So these are not e-bikes, these are not motorcycles. Basically, they're broken down into 3 different classes, class 1, 2, and 3. Class 1 and class 2 are going to be similar speed-wise. First of all, the definition of an e-bike is it's going to have pedals and it does not exceed 750 watts. That's the motor size itself. So class 1 e-bike goes up to 20 miles an hour. It's pedal assisted, so it has to have pedals, but also has a throttle. It does not provide assistance after reaching 20 miles an hour. It stops at that point. No insurance, no driver license required, no license plates, not a motor vehicle. It's a regular bicycle. Under the age of 18, you're required to wear a helmet, just like every other bike. Class 2 e-bike, it's kind of similar to a class 1 in that it reaches a top speed of 20 miles an hour, also 750 watts or lower in size, but this can be non-pedal assisted. So it can have a throttle and throttle only. Class 3, where it gets a little bit more tricky, it goes up to 28 miles an hour. So these are the ones that you've seen the kids flying a little bit faster on. They still have pedals. And once it hits 28, no more assist. You have to be 16 years old. No license is required, but you must be 16 years old to drive a class 3 e-bike. So class 1 and class 3 e-bikes, they have start assistance or a walk mode that propels the electric bicycle on motor power alone up to a maximum speed of 3.7 miles an hour. After that, you got to pedal. Any questions on this? Now, I realize that I'm throwing a lot at you, so if you do have any questions, feel free to stop me midway. I learned a lot going through this.
To me, the big issue is these class 2 e-bikes that they don't pedal. I mean, they're just motorcycles.
Ish, and I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But yes, so class 2 still goes up to 20 miles an hour, so you're still limited on your top speed, but you're kind of onto something, which I'll touch on in a second. Yes.
So looking at your slide here, it shows typical bicycle step-through frame. What classification are these bicycles, e-bikes, that look a lot like off-road frames or
Old scooters.
So I'll get to that. This is the first slide. So you give me a few more minutes. There's a few more slides coming up, and I'll answer all those questions and more. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So here we're getting to motorized scooters. I learned something new when I was going through this. I didn't realize that motorized scooters require a driver's license. This blew my mind. On a side note, I was coming back from an operation this morning with my sergeant. We saw a motorcycle get in an accident with a vehicle on Woodside Road at Broadway. It's a weird light, happens all the time. As we were sitting there, a kid got run over on his scooter by a vehicle. So these kids are flying on these scooters. He didn't have a helmet. He was 14 years old, and his scooter was pretty fast. So what is a motorized scooter? It can be anything from a Razor all the way up to these really advanced scooter-looking vehicles. They are required to have a driver's license. They're not required to be registered.
in the top frame, that's the scooter, right?
Yes.
Or some variant of that.
Some variation thereof, yes.
No other photos on that screen are considered.
No, we'll get to that in a second too.
They get paid by the word. So
Yeah, it's blew my mind as well, but it is the California Vehicle Code. It's been written by somebody way higher above than me. You're not required to be registered. Driver's license is required in any class, and it cannot go faster than 15 miles an hour. Has a maximum wattage of 1,000 watts. Electric motorized board, electric skateboard. This also is a little bit scary. The motor has to be less than 1,000 watts, which is pretty substantial. It has a max speed of 20 miles an hour, a skateboard at 20 miles an hour, designed to transport only one person, thank God, and it must be 16 years or older. Now we get into the motorcycles and motor-driven cycles. There's two different names here. A motorcycle is 2 wheels and can be straddled. You're required to have an M1 driver's license. And then a motor-driven cycle is very similar to a motorcycle, but it has less than 150 cubic centimeter motor size. So, and this one is also required to have an M1 class license. Any questions on these?
Question.
Yes.
So I see the motorized scooters going around all the time at a very fast clip.
Yes.
Do policemen have the right to stop a young person and ask them if they have a driver's license?
Yes.
And do we do that?
That would be a better question for my motors division. I do a school, quite a bit. I don't give them tickets. What I do is I'll call the parents, have the parents come by and have a conversation with the parents, explain to them that they're required to have a driver's license. It's all about education for me. Okay, now we're getting to mopeds, motorized bicycles. People will oftentimes put motors on bicycles. It gets rather interesting. So in this case here, you have to have an M1 or M2 license. You're 16 years of age or older, because you have a license anyway. You're required to wear a DOT-approved helmet while you ride. Insurance is not required. Special license plates are required for these. And you may ride in a bicycle lane if authorized by an ordinance. Pocket bikes and mini choppers. These you may see, they're kind of smaller, about this big, very low to the ground. Kids sit on them, 50 cc's usually. So these bikes don't have VIN numbers. So they don't have vehicle identification numbers. Technically, they can't be on a road at all. They may not drive on a roadway or a sidewalk, and they're unable to be registered because they do not meet federal standards, DMV standards. So whether you have a license or not, you can't actually be on these things on the roadway. And then, Mr. Owens, to answer your question, the off-highway vehicle, this is the motorcycle that you were talking about. An off-highway motorcycle means a motorcycle or motor-driven cycle, which is subject to identification under this code. Its registration with the DMV is required. They do have VIN numbers of sorts. Special license identification is required. You gotta be 16 years or older and wear a bicycle safety helmet. These are the bikes that you see flying down the road at 50 miles an hour. These are the ones that are jailbroken. You can go onto Amazon, you can go anywhere and you can buy them. They're about $3,000, $4,000. They have about 3,000 watts and they scream. They go very, very, very fast. There was a kid that flew into the back of a police car coming down Farm Hill Road, rearranged everything. It was really bad. But parents are letting their kids ride these things. So something to be aware of. Questions on this page, because I'm sure this one has questions.
Yeah, there's a step below that off-road dirt bike. Different style frame, but very aggressive bicycle frame. It does have pedals. I wouldn't look very inefficient, but it also has a throttle and a pedal, and your 3 kids raise you 4 out of. So those are the bigger frames, not quite like the school ferry ride. A lot of those.
So
They're fast.
that's going to be more of the probably a downhill type bike style. Yeah, the reason they go so fast, they're not sold to go that fast. Kids jailbreak them. The same way these kids are very, very, very smart when it comes to technology. They have to explain to me what they do. They get online, you can plug something in, you can change the parameters of everything, and you jailbreak them. So they can hit top speed of 50, 60 miles an hour as well.
Where do they fit in the licensing element?
Well, that's an illegal bike at that point. It's out of class. By going that fast, it's considered to be out of class. So this bike here, this off-highway vehicle, is out of class as well. It cannot be driven on the roadway. It has to be green stickered. So if you ever go to an off-road park, you'll see dirt bikes. They have a green sticker, not a regular license plate. That's your registration. This is what you're dealing with here.
Unlike the mini bike above it, which has no sticker.
It can't. That mini bike above it can't even be on a roadway, any roadway. Next slide. One more. Okay, so this right here is going to be your registration for an off-highway vehicle. This is what's called a green sticker. You're usually going to find this on the down bar in front, on the down tube. One thing I forgot to mention, if you go back to, those off-highway vehicles, the bottom one, the motorcycles, those don't have pedals, but you can go on Amazon and buy a whole pedal system for them. Doesn't mean it's functional, but they have pedals. So when we're looking for these bikes and we're saying, oh, it doesn't have pedals, great, I can stop it. Well, these bikes here, they add the pedals to them, non-functional, so trying to trick us. They also, each class has a sticker, class 1, 2, and 3, and it's usually going to be on a down tube in front or underneath the frame. You can, again, go on Amazon and buy these stickers. And the sticker will tell you it's a class 1, 2, or 3, and it'll tell you the motor size as well. One more, yeah. So this is going to be our last page. This is going to be the OHV reference guide. As you can see, there's different types of manufacturers for these motorcycles. The Sur-Ron, there's 3 of them there. You can see it's 47 miles an hour. I don't have my glasses, but 56, 68 miles an hour. Your peak motor size is going to be 22,500 watts. That's ridiculous. The Talaria, the 2 of those, again, 51 and 46, Segways, E-Ride Pro. You can go on to Amazon and type in e-bike and you'll get a slew of these. And you can go through them and you can see exactly what these kids are buying. They're costing $4,000 to $5,000 a piece. These cannot be on the roadway, which means that they are towable. So if we see a kid, or even an adult riding one of these things, we stop them, we can legally tow the motorcycle. They cannot get the motorcycle back until they've proven they've gone to the DMV and registered these vehicles. You can't register this vehicle, so they can't get these things back. I think these kids really, and adults, need to understand this. And that's it. Any other questions?
All right, thank you. So when I
Question just about the education side. But contacts with the parents, how many contacts? You're at school, talking to these kids all the time. How many times do you get parents and a clarity of 7 miles an hour?
I try to do it as often as possible. I think for me, it's more about education as a whole. So I'm going to be presenting to middle school. I'll be presenting to various student body populations as a whole, hoping to get the kids to understand the dangers behind these. But I'm generally stopping kids on scooters because that's my thing. There's a lot of these kids rolling around without helmets on, and that's scary. So I do call the parents, and I have those conversations. In one day, I probably had 4 or 5 of them. And I think a lot of the parents are in awe the same way a lot of you guys were today when I told you you need a driver's license. What? So they're in shock and awe. And once I explain why, they kind of understand it. So everyone's biggest complaint seems to be, but we just bought this and it cost $3,000.
So it seems like that would make for a great article in the Almanac. I mean, it's pretty pervasive and a lot of parents are probably naive to this. So what?
Yeah, so we have, like, the last several months, the first part of the problem was there were a lot of questions I couldn't answer. Nothing against our folks. They're very professional at what they do, but we had to educate ourselves so we knew what we were enforcing.
Right.
I just submitted an article for the Athertonian that will come out, basically the same information, and every opportunity we get, we're trying to do outreach. So as for how many parents we've contacted, I don't have a specific number, but I can tell you a lot lately, just because we now have a focus and an emphasis over the last couple months. We participate with Menlo Park Police, emphasizing this particular problem. And the group did really good work. They developed a letter that goes out to the parents when we make the stop. And we had a lot of discussion internally, realizing that the parents are the ones that we need to get the attention from, right? The parents are the ones that are purchasing these things that are expensive. So we even talked about, are we going to impound them? What are we going to do? Some of them we impound because they're not allowed to be registered, cannot be released. They just lose it. So we're starting with the parents, starting with the letter. And I like what the officers did coming up is when they make the contact, they're having the parents come to the scene. And, if you don't want to cooperate, then we're going to take the bike. So you can have your parents come, we'll talk with them and start getting their education that way.
We're seeing, I don't know what the boundaries are, but certainly in the fire district, we're seeing more impacts. It shocked me when I saw the 4 kids you saw approved that don't have as many accidents. to the neck, that's going to start awareness. You might.
Well, and we hope that, the kids are so connected to social media that when their parents get called, that they're talking to their kids and say, hey, beware. And hopefully the parents are then talking. And like Dimitri said, we're trying to get out in the schools for parent nights, any opportunity we can to get out in front of parents so they know. Because most people, they just don't know.
It's a mode of transportation, it's taking the load off the parents, to do list and all the rest, that's great. But I'm a physicist, but if you increase the speeds, formula that says you're going to we saw the same thing in the introduction of full suspension bikes. Right? I've got box on the front, I can do anything. Now we're seeing high-speed impacts with kids on bikes, and just the severity of that is huge. Applaud you guys for getting in front of this, and the accidents that we are seeing before.
Thank you for this.
Is there any education program? These kids don't know the rules of the road. They're out there going to, even on a class 2 doing 20 miles an hour, they just blow through stop signs.
So at parent back to school night at Hillview, they mentioned it, that e-bikes are probably not what we should be buying for our kids, and that there are certain things that are only legal for kids to have and not certain other classes. So there's some propagation of this knowledge happening.
Schools are starting to get the attention, and through the County Office of Ed, Menlo Park City School District is about ready to not allow e-bikes to be brought to campus, parked on campus. So of course, the comment is, well, they'll just park it off campus. That's something that we'll have to deal with. So they are getting the attention. People are now educating themselves and understanding.
Something to be aware of. I mean, at the end of the day, this is still a moving target. I mean, it's all new to us. So this is the newest, best thing coming out. The laws are going to change. Everything's going to adjust accordingly. And we just kind of have to be very fluid with it, which I think our department is great about doing. We're great about educating, and that's the ultimate goal right now. Not to ticket, not to punish, but to educate. So, well, I guess we'll probably continue doing what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the last item, real quick, is just an update on the permit parking for Maple and Ashfield. You guys were all intimately involved in the process. I think it was a good process in trying to deal with all the parking problems we have at Town Center, a lot of it related to the library. So in the middle of, 1st of August is when we started initiating the program, sending permits out to the folks. We started taking enforcement action in the middle of August, and we were quite busy. Probably a good thing to report is that activity has subsided. I think, the residents are getting used to it. The word is getting out to the library. It's not a place to park, but we are continuing our enforcement efforts, and then eventually we'll make an evaluation down the road. If residents have an appetite to keep it, do they want it on both streets or not? And then we'll come back to you with more information on that.
Are we writing any tickets for?
I don't have numbers, but I know we started off with a lot of warning citations, and now we're kind of beyond that, so it's an actual citation.
But we're putting a lot of warnings on.
We were, as a grace period, and then we move into still, it depends on the situation. The officers have discretion.
I think that's part of the puzzle, right? So that's education inside the library to the folks that attend the library and those events and street and, oh, okay, I can't park here.
Right. That's it.
Okay, so we're going
to start on that. We have a couple of folks online that are probably interested in
Okay.
speed hump. So we'll introduce the item and then take some comment, and then we'll. So thank you, Chair, members of the committee. As you know, over the last year or so, the town has installed speed humps throughout the town. And recently we issued an outreach survey to get public opinion as to the various humps, their effectiveness, whether or not there are concerns about visibility or size, et cetera. And so I did not prepare a presentation for today, given all of the other items that we had on the agenda. And so I'm happy to have that for you at the next meeting. But I think following on the amount of information that, for example, was provided and is available related to the active transportation plan, there's a lot of information related to the speed hump survey that is attached to the staff report. And so I'll make myself available to answer any questions, but I'd like to defer full discussion of the item to the next meeting after everybody's had a chance to digest the information. But at the same time, we have some folks online that I believe would like to provide some public comment. And so.
Okay, does anybody, any members want to make it?
I took a quick waltz through report, and I'm just curious. Several of the specific areas, staff recommendation was, since there was opposition to them, 50% plus, that humps be modified, not quite as intrusive. And I'm just wondering, why don't we use those all the time? I keep on thinking about the speed tables on Bay, and they're wonderfully well designed to keep you going 25 to 30 miles an hour. You don't have to slow down, just cruise over them. The ones like, for example, on Glenwood, if you don't slow down, whatever's in your back seat or your trunk is going to be elevated. Is there some reason why reasonable ones aren't used routinely?
So I'll start that these were done as a pilot effort. And so we installed removable devices. So these things are basically bolted into the asphalt, and we don't like them, we can unbolt them and take them away, as opposed to asphalt, which once you put down is quite a bit of effort to remove. So before putting in asphalt and making something permanent, we wanted to do something a little more temporary in nature.
So there aren't temporary speed tables?
There are different configurations. And so when we say modify, so the ones that we have right now are basically a ramp up and a ramp down. You can buy a centerpiece or multiple centerpieces to extend it and make it more flat in the middle. And so when we say modify, and that's part of that presentation that we'll be giving, is that there is an opportunity to say, okay, well, the way that they are now maybe is not the best. Option one, you can just remove them and we can reuse them somewhere else, or remove them and not put them somewhere else, which some members of the public would be happy about. The other alternative is to say, okay, well, they're not optimal in their current configuration. Maybe we should try altering the configuration a little bit and see if that is better or not. And so that'll be that conversation about potentially modifying. We'll have some images to kind of show you what that would look like.
Anybody else?
More to that question, is the intention for people to come at it and then slow down to much lower than the speed limit on the road and then go over it and then continue? Or is the intention to have it be really uncomfortable if you're going over the speed limit? Or is it more like we're just kind of trying and seeing what people...
Well, so I think I'll say somewhere in the middle there is that some of these are rather abrupt, and you shouldn't have to slow down from 25 to 10 to go over it. And so, and that's why we're saying, well, these we bought off the shelf and kind of tried them. And so we're finding that in some locations, people are happy, even on Glenwood. They want people to slow down that much. On other streets, people are just not happy. And I think one of those is I'll call it the north-south Selby between Atherton Avenue and Stockbridge. That's one of the ones that there's a lot of like not happy folks, where they're feeling that they have to slow down a little too much. And so there's kind of that fine line. And so we also have a line between, there are certain types of humps that are made for, I'll call it lighter traffic, that are smaller, that allow you to drive easily at that speed, but they're not meant for high traffic roadways. And so that example would be we have some here in the town center parking lot, and we have some, I think, on Berry Lane, Monte Vista, Linda Vista. Those are just like 1 block or 2 block short streets, and they don't get a huge amount of traffic. And so you have a lower profile, lighter duty type speed hump, but I can't take that and put it on Selby that gets a lot more traffic, because it's just going to get beaten up a little too much, if that makes sense.
Sergeant Metzger, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to point out the fact that there are smaller ones on Berry Lane that kind of modify cars to remain at the speed limit as opposed to having to slow down. What we're seeing oftentimes are cars slowing down for the speed limits to go over them at 10 miles an hour. 10 miles an hour. Screen on. What we're seeing is vehicles with the larger speed bumps are having to slow down to 5 miles an hour to go over the speed bumps, and then they are accelerating. The thought is that if somebody needs to be somewhere at a certain time, if they're slowing down, they're going to make that 10 bump somewhere. And so I think the larger speed bumps, people are slowing down for them. And then when they don't slow down, it's who mentioned whatever's in your back seat is now in your front seat. So, those were just some of the observations that we've seen not work in the street.
Yeah, that's it. There's a hand raised so when you're ready to migrate to public comment.
Nobody else online?
So, Adrian, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Adrian Silva. I am Encinal Elementary Safe Routes parent volunteer. So I'm very familiar with the temporary speed bumps that were installed in front of the school, which I think have done a good job at beginning the slowing down of the cars. One thing that I've noticed there is that larger vehicles can hit those speed bumps at speed and maintain their speed and momentum, which in front of an elementary school is probably the last place you want to do that. What I wanted to comment on, besides my obvious opinion that the speed humps in front of Encinal Elementary should not be made smaller to allow higher speeds, should be that the survey that the city made, that the town made, while it's great to ask for input from the citizens about what they think about something, you should be centering the outcome of the speed humps, how fast you want cars to be passing by here. If someone doesn't like to slow down and they're commenting that for the survey, is that necessarily guiding the conversation in the direction that we want? What is the outcome? Can we design the speed bumps to accommodate for the speed target that we want in that area, and not be swayed by the folks who that is not a priority for? So I just want the committee to think about that and think about like what is the outcome that you want, and can you design for that? There are from ITE, International Transportation Engineer Association, guidelines for how big those speed. Robert kind of mentioned some of this, how big they are, how long they are, how spaced apart. All of those help you, have the outcome speed that you want. So while this is a great, every opportunity like this is a great place for citizen input, I think that the outcome of those speed bumps should be centered. Let's not let people tell, the city how to design a speed bump and what kind of infrastructure, but what kind of outcome you want. Then that way it can, it can get us to the result that we're looking for. So let's keep that centered when we're talking about reducing one or making it permanent or not. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
If you're online and you're interested in making a comment, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised, so that's it.
So we're going to cover this.
Yes.
And we can.
You'll send the staff report out prior. So
Yep. I mean, you have a staff report now that has a lot of the information. And you have a summary of the survey results as well attached.
got it. Yeah.
And
I
so
misspoke. You were going to create a presentation.
that is correct.
That future agenda topics.
Speed hump survey.
A speed hump survey for one.
Okay. Next. When is the next meeting?
November 25th,
When is Thanksgiving?
the 27th.
Is that gonna work?
We'll send a doodle. I think we'll send a doodle poll. I think that might be a difficult week for folks.
I mean, we could probably try to do it a week.
Yep, we'll do that.
Let's try to do. I'm ready to adjourn. Anybody else want to?
Ready to?
Right. Second.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Great.